Okay, so dealing with cluster B personalities and dealing with narcissists, they're crazy making, right? I hate to say it, but literally can influence a person to become emotionally, if not mentally ill. All right, because that's a lot of crazy making to be dealing with for a long period of time. Cluster B personalities and or narcissists, they're after the narcissistic supply by any means necessary, meaning that if they hurt others along the way, then oh well, as long as they get their narcissistic supply, they don't care about how they influence others. So as far as like a person becoming possibly mentally and or emotionally ill is a very real thing. Okay, this is something to really think about if you are currently in a relationship with a narcissist and a cluster B personality. Attempting to try to figure out their hidden motives is part of the crazy making. They actually want you to try to figure them out. They already know what they're after, and that is the narcissistic supply. They already are aware that they're loyal to their false self-images. Narcissistic personality and certain other cluster personality types, sometimes they will put up a strong defense against learning how to emotionally regulate in order to have better relationships with people around him or her. Part of the crazy making is the resistance to change. Narcissists and cluster B personality types, again, when they sense change, especially the changes that challenge their false self-images, they tend to become a little bit more defensive and resistant to that change. Instead of putting up a real defense for the change, sometimes we may not be taking care of ourselves enough. Narcissists and cluster B personality types, when they're resistant to that change, they become a little bit more self-absorbed. That means they're resisting. That means they're looking out for number one. The predatory natures of some narcissistic personality will seem to heighten at this time when they sense something different, especially if it challenges their false self-image. But sometimes what happens with you and I is the opposite. We may not take care of ourselves enough when this is the time that we really need to start practicing self-preservation. They're protecting their false self-image, and the ante will go up. So this is when the shenanigans may be more plentiful, or they may pull more shenanigans. They may become, again, more argumentative at this time because they sense something that's a threat, that they perceive as a threat to their false self-image, and that is you may be leaving the relationship, or you may start to outgrow the narcissistic relationship. So sometimes when this happens, this is when we need to take a little bit more care of ourselves. Let's move forward. When one considers the spiritual, emotional, and psychological challenges of investing in dysfunctional relationships with narcissists, he or she might understand how attempting to figure him or her out more than likely will prove to be a mistake. Narcissists and cluster B personality types often do not change over time, regardless of the pleas from their loved ones to do so. A cluster B personality and a narcissistic personality are personality disorders which are fixed, meaning more than likely these individuals will not change over time. Under the umbrella of the cluster B personality is the borderline personality, the histrionic personality, as well as the narcissistic personality. Okay, so these individuals tend to not change over time, even when other people are willing to negotiate with him or her, when other people are practically pleading for them to at least help them to resolve some of their relationship issues. The narcissist and the cluster B personality, they like to wash their hands of all of that. They walk away, all the while telling themselves that they are good and you are the one that is bad. You're the one that has the problems. You're the one that's the instigator of all the chaos and all the conflict. These individuals tend to not change their story. They tend to not change their perspective. So when a person considers the spiritual, emotional, and the psychological challenges of these types of relationships with these types of personalities, then yeah, usually it proves to be a mistake because the cost usually ends up being too high. Let's move forward. Narcissists and cluster B personality types have difficulty emotionally regulating, therefore often lack empathy and a desire to build intimate relationships with others. One of the things that can offset mental illness or emotional illness, but let's just go ahead and focus on mental illness first. One of the things that can bring that on when a person is dealing with a narcissist and a cluster B personality is that he or she is trying to figure out the crazy making. In other words, they're trying to make sense out of what doesn't. They may leave their emotions on the back burner. They may begin to overanalyze the theme of the relationship. A highly sensitive person, such as an empath, they don't have a problem with feeling deeply. However, when they place that on the back burner and they begin to overanalyze, this is how mental illness can set in. Mental means the brain, the thoughts, okay, thinking. Mental means a person is using their mind. So they don't have a problem feeling. No, the issue is that they're trying to figure out, or they're trying to use their minds to figure out the crazy making. This is how mental illness can start. The cluster B personality and the narcissist, they don't know how to emotionally regulate, meaning they have the opposite issue. They don't feel deeply enough. They keep their emotions out of it, even when they're being histrionic. It's an act. It's part of the crazy making. Sometimes we can overanalyze it and we can ask the question, well, why do they do that? Or we're at their mercy and we think that we need them for the closure. We're asking them why they treat us like they do. We may be asking, well, why does it seem like you get along with everybody except me? See, that's probably not the best way to go about it. When a person knows how the narcissist does what he or she does, it's not the same as trying to figure them out. It's quite different. When a person feels very deeply and they're trying to figure out someone who doesn't emotionally regulate, they can be over analytical about it sometimes. Or they try, they use their mental faculties to try to figure out something that just doesn't make sense. They call it crazy making for a reason. The narcissist doesn't feel enough, and you, as the highly sensitive person or a person who has empathic abilities, or not, but you are the person that really, when it comes to your emotions, you don't really have any problem with feeling your emotions. Okay, so you have people that's on the opposite side of the spectrum here. You have one that possibly feels deeply or a little bit too deeply, right? And you have one that doesn't feel deeply enough because he or she cannot emotionally regulate. Narcissists and cluster B personality types, really when you think about it, even though they're not very good with emotionally regulating, but they can go out into the world and make some money. They can go out into the world and do some amazing things. But when it comes down to those emotions and interacting and becoming intimate with people, that's where they fail because they don't emotionally regulate. Or being under arrested development, even though they may be 40 years of age. When it comes to the emotions, they tend to remain under arrested development. A highly sensitive person, such as an empath, who is involved with a cluster B personality and or narcissist, it is their mental health that is especially compromised due to what I just stated. They don't have an issue with feeling deeply. Their issue is when they become over analytical about what is going on in the relationship. In other words, they're trying to figure out the crazy making, which doesn't make sense. So they're trying to make sense out of what doesn't. The cluster B personality and or narcissist, they're not interested in connecting deeply with anyone. So they don't emotionally regulate. they lack empathy. So they don't feel deeply enough. They're involved with someone who feels deeply. Therefore, mental illness can set in. Emotional illness is when a person often doesn't know how to use their emotions. They don't balance what they think with what they feel. But that's another video. I really wanted to key in on how mental illness can set in for those who are involved with narcissist and narcissistic personality types. Tool number 1. Take steps to learn how to become your best problem solver, whereas it pertains to the various challenges that the dysfunctional relationship with the narcissist brings. References and resources. You can find the references and resources in the description box below. I'm Luminous Star. I want to thank everyone for joining me today or tonight. And of course, wherever you may be right now, I wish you the very best. Stay tuned for more vlogs and stay tuned for more videos.